Stop telling him he's handsome, because the truth is, that's the fastest way to be forgotten, not ignored, not rejected, just quietly placed in the same category as everyone else. And you don't want that. You don't want to be everyone else. Here's what most people don't realize. Attraction doesn't grow from what's obvious. It grows from what feels unexpected. Every man has heard the usual compliments. He knows how to respond to them. Smile, nod, say thanks, and move on. There's no mystery, no depth, no reason for him to think about you again later. But the moment you say something different, something that makes him pause for just a second longer, that's where everything shifts. Because now, you're not just talking, you're making him feel seen in a way he's not used to. And that feeling, it stays. Think about it like this. People don't remember words. They remember emotions. They remember how someone made them feel when no one else could. So if your words only touch the surface, they disappear. But if they reach something deeper, they stick. And that's exactly what you're about to learn. Not just what to say, but how to say it in a way that creates that quiet pull, that natural curiosity, that feeling that makes him come back to you without even realizing why. Because once you understand this, you don't chase attention anymore. You become unforgettable. When you stop complimenting how he looks and start noticing how he thinks, something powerful shifts in the dynamic between you. Because a man already knows where he stands physically, the world reminds him of that all the time. But very few people ever slow down enough to understand how his mind works, how he processes things, how he sees situations differently from everyone else. And when you become that person, the one who recognizes his perspective, you immediately separate yourself from the noise. Saying something like, I like the way you think, it's not typical, does more than sound nice. It tells him that you're paying attention on a deeper level. It shows that you're not just reacting to what's in front of you, but actually engaging with who he is beneath the surface. And that creates a feeling most people crave, but rarely get: the feeling of being understood without having to explain everything. Now, here's why this matters so much. A man's identity is strongly connected to his decisions, his opinions, his way of looking at the world. So when you acknowledge that part of him, it feels personal. It feels real. It doesn't come across like a line you could say to anyone else, because it isn't. It's specific. And specificity is what makes a compliment stick. Anyone can say you're attractive, but not everyone can say something that makes him stop and think, wait, she actually gets me. That moment right there, that pause, that slight shift in his attention is where attraction starts to build naturally. And the best part is you don't need complicated words or some perfect script. It's in the tone, the timing, the honesty behind it. Even something simple like you explain things in a way that just makes sense, or I didn't think about it like that until you said it, can create that same effect. Because now you're not placing him in a category, you're highlighting what makes him different. And people are always drawn to those who recognize their uniqueness. So instead of focusing on what he sees in the mirror, focus on what's happening in his mind. Listen a little more. Notice the small things in the way he talks, the way he reacts, the way he solves problems. Then reflect that back to him in a natural way. Because when a man feels mentally appreciated, not just visually admired, he doesn't just enjoy your presence, he values it. And once he starts valuing it, the connection moves from something casual to something he actually doesn't want to lose. When you start noticing what others miss, you step into a completely different space, one where your words don't just sound nice, they feel real. Most people move through conversations on autopilot. They react to what's obvious, they repeat the same kind of compliments, and they never really look deeper. But when you do, when you catch those small, almost invisible details about him, it creates a quiet kind of impact that's hard to ignore. Because now it's not just a compliment, it's proof that you're actually paying attention. Think about it. Maybe it's the way he listens more than he talks, or how he picks up on things others overlook, or even how he stays calm when things get a little chaotic. These are not loud traits, they don't demand attention. But they say a lot about who he is. And when you point them out in a simple, natural way, like you notice things most people don't, that's rare, or you're more thoughtful than you let on, it hits differently. It feels personal, it feels specific, and most importantly, it feels earned. Here's the deeper layer to this. People are used to being seen at a surface level, but they're not used to being understood. So when you highlight something subtle, something he didn't even expect you to notice, it creates a moment of surprise. And that surprise turns into curiosity. He starts wondering how much you've really seen, how much you understand, and why it feels so easy to be himself around you. That's where attraction quietly builds, not from trying too hard, but from simply being aware in a way others aren't. And you don't need to overthink it. This isn't about analyzing every move he makes. It's about being present, watching how he interacts, how he reacts, how he carries himself when he's not trying to impress anyone. Those unfiltered moments reveal the most. And when you reflect those back to him, even in a soft, casual tone, it creates a sense of connection that feels natural instead of forced. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to feel like they're more than what's obvious. They want to feel like someone sees the parts they don't show to the world. And when you become that person for him, the one who notices the quiet details, the hidden strengths, you're no longer just someone he talks to. You become someone he feels understood by. And that kind of connection is not easy to replace. When you make him feel capable, you tap into something much deeper than attraction. You tap into how he sees himself, and that's powerful. Because for most men, feeling capable isn't just a nice bonus, it's part of their core identity. It's tied to how they handle pressure, how they solve problems, how they show up when things aren't easy. So, when you reflect that back to him in a genuine way, it doesn't feel like flattery. It feels like recognition. Think about the difference between empty praise and something that actually lands. Saying, "You're amazing" is nice, but it's vague. It doesn't stick. But when you say something like, "I like how you stay calm when things get complicated," or "You always seem to figure things out, even when it's not easy," now you're pointing to something real, something he can connect to. And when he connects to it, he starts to feel seen not just for what he does, but for how he does it. Here's why this matters so much. Life can be unpredictable. There are moments when people doubt themselves, when things don't go as planned. And in those moments, the people who remind us of our strength become incredibly important. So when your words quietly reinforce his sense of capability, you're creating a space where he feels confident, grounded, and understood. And naturally, he'll want to come back to that space because it feels good to be around someone who sees you at your strongest. But there's a balance here. This isn't about putting him on a pedestal or exaggerating things just to impress him. People can feel when something isn't real. It's about noticing genuine moments, how he handles a situation, how he takes responsibility, how he keeps going when things get tough, and simply reflecting that back. Even something as simple as "You don't panic like most people," that's actually really attractive, can have a strong effect because it's honest and specific. And the beauty of this is it creates a natural pull without effort. You're not trying to convince him of anything. You're just holding up a mirror to his best qualities. And when someone feels like you see their strengths clearly, they begin to associate that feeling with you. Being around you starts to feel like being at their best. So instead of focusing on surface level compliments, shift your attention to how he shows up in real moments. Notice his resilience, his calmness, his problem solving. Speak to that in a simple, relaxed way. Because when a man feels capable in your presence, he doesn't just enjoy your attention, he starts to value your perspective. And once he values that, the connection naturally becomes stronger, deeper, and much harder to replace. When you start appreciating his effort instead of just the outcome, you unlock a different kind of connection, one that feels real, grounded, and deeply respectful. Because let's be honest, most people only show up when there's something obvious to praise. Success, results, big wins, those are easy to notice. Anyone can clap when things go right, but very few people pay attention to what happens before that: the thought, the time, the small decisions, the quiet consistency. And that's exactly where your words can stand out. Think about it from his side. There are things he does that don't always get recognized. Maybe he puts thought into something he says, maybe he makes an effort to plan, maybe he handles things in a way that's calm and intentional. But because it's not flashy, it often goes unnoticed. So when you say something like, I can tell you really thought that through, or I like the effort you put into this, it shows, it hits differently. It doesn't feel like a generic compliment. It feels like you actually saw the process behind the result. And here's the deeper impact of that. When you appreciate effort, you're not just reacting to success, you're encouraging the behavior that creates it. You're telling him in a subtle way that who he is while trying matters just as much as what he achieves. And that builds respect, real respect, the kind that doesn't fade when things aren't perfect. There's also something quietly attractive about being the person who notices effort. It shows emotional awareness, it shows patience, it shows that you're not just focused on quick impressions, but on something more meaningful. And that naturally creates a sense of comfort around you. Because now he doesn't feel like he has to constantly prove himself to earn your attention. He knows you're paying attention even in the small moments. But the key here is to keep it simple and genuine. You don't need big words or dramatic delivery. Even a soft, calm line like, I respect how much thought you put into things, or you're consistent. Not many people are like that, can stay with him longer than something louder but empty. It's the honesty behind it that makes it stick. So instead of waiting for big moments to say something, start noticing the smaller ones, the effort, the intention, the consistency. Because when a man feels appreciated, not just for winning, but for trying, he doesn't just feel good in the moment. He starts to associate that steady, respectful feeling with you. And over time, that creates a connection that feels safe, strong, and genuinely hard to replace. When you create a feeling instead of just giving a compliment, everything changes. Because words by themselves don't hold power, the emotion behind them does. Most compliments stay on the surface, they describe something, they sound nice, and then they fade. But when you shift from describing him to expressing how he makes you feel, it, it becomes something deeper, something he can actually connect to. And that's what stays in his mind long after the conversation is over. Think about the difference. Saying, you're great to be around is pleasant, but it's still distant. It doesn't fully land. Now, compare that to something like, I feel really calm when I'm around you, or there's something about your presence that just puts me at ease. Now, it's not just about him anymore. It's about the experience of being with him. And that's powerful because you're tying his presence to a positive emotional state. Here's why this works so well. People are naturally drawn to places and people where they feel good, not because they logically decide to, but because it happens on a deeper, almost automatic level. So when your words connect him to a feeling like calmness, comfort, excitement, or even a quiet kind of happiness, he starts associating you with that emotional experience. And once that association is built, it creates a natural pull. He won't need a reason to come back. He'll just feel like he wants to. And the beauty of this is, it doesn't require anything complicated. It's not about using perfect lines or trying to impress him. It's about being honest in a slightly more expressive way. Maybe it's the way he listens, maybe it's how he carries himself, maybe it's the energy he brings into a space, whatever it is, just translate that into how it makes you feel. Even something simple like, I don't know why, but I always feel a bit happier after talking to you, can create a lasting impact. Also, this approach feels more natural and less forced. You're not putting pressure on him to live up to a label or expectation. You're simply sharing your experience. And that makes it easier for him to receive it without overthinking. It flows, it feels real. So instead of focusing on finding the perfect compliment, focus on the feeling you want to express. Because in the end, people don't hold on to exact words, they hold on to emotions. And when a man starts to connect you with a feeling he enjoys, something peaceful, something warm, something different, that's when the connection quietly deepens. And that's the kind of attraction that doesn't fade, it builds. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. It's not about saying more, it's about saying what actually matters. Anyone can throw out a basic compliment. Anyone can follow the usual pattern, but not everyone can create a moment that stays in someone's mind after it's over. And now you know how to do that. You know how to shift from surface level words to something that feels real, personal, and unforgettable. The next time you're talking to him, don't rush. Don't fall back into old habits. Just slow down, listen a little deeper, notice a little more, and then say something that actually reflects what you see and feel. Keep it simple, keep it honest, but let it come from a place of awareness, because that's where the magic is. And here's the truth. When you start doing this, you'll notice a change, not just in how he responds, but in how he looks at you, how he listens to you, how he stays a little more present when you're around. That's not by chance. That's because you've become someone who makes him feel something different. If this opened your eyes even a little, stay connected. There's a lot more to explore when it comes to understanding attraction in a real simple way. And trust me, once you get this right, you won't need to chase attention anymore. It will come to you naturally.